you do not get into masters, as there are between 4 to 12 places available at each university depending on the stream that you want to do, if you don't get into masters immediately, you are able to find work and employment as a registered counselor. Hello everybody, welcome to speakvotomi. Thank you so much for joining me. If it's your first time here, you're absolutely welcome. Here we chat psychology, faith and lifestyle. So today I want to do another psychology video wherein I want to address the normal psychology honours degree and the Bpsych equivalent in psychometry, as well as the Bpsych equivalent that makes you a registered counselor afterwards. So let's just backtrack a little bit and remind ourselves about how one becomes a psychologist. So in order to become a psychologist, you need to do your undergrad, and thereafter you need to do a postgraduate degree, which is normally, and what most people do, is the honours in psychology, and thereafter you attain your masters. However, there is something that has been recently added. It can be new to you. I personally did not know about it when I did my psychology honours, and I really wish that I had known about it, because that's probably the direction that I would have gone in, because I feel as though it's got a little bit of a safety net in case you don't get into your master's degree. So this, what I'm talking about, is the Bpsych equivalent. So the normal psychology honours degree is a 1-year degree, and it's basically more theory. You are not doing any practicals. At that point in time, you are not taught, the basics of counselling and how to practically sit with somebody and run a counselling session with them. You are basically taught, more theory, and yes, you do a lot of the therapeutic methods and so forth, but it's more or less from a theory point of view. In terms of doing it practically, I personally did not gain the knowledge of doing that. So Bpsych equivalent, now this is a professional postgraduate degree wherein at the end of it you're able to register as a registered counselor with the HPCSA. So you are accredited and you are held accountable by that health board, and you are able to then practice. So how is this different to being a psychologist, you might ask? So psychologists, they normally come up with treatment plans for, this is not just broadly speaking because there's so many types of psychologists, but they come up with treatment plans for mental illnesses and also diagnose mental illnesses. As I mentioned, this is just the broad scope because there's so many different types of psychologists. And this obviously excludes me speaking about the industrial psychologists, because that is like corporate field all on its own. But just broadly, psychologists, that's what what psychologists would do with the clinical or counseling. So now as a registered counselor, you don't diagnose anybody, but you are able to treat people with social issues and life issues, and just make and help them process that better. So that's what you're able to do as a registered counselor, and you are accredited. As I mentioned, it's an actual profession. You have been trained, you accumulate those 720 hours that are required for you to become a registered counselor. So this is an 18-month degree. So a normal honours degree would be your 1 year, 12 months, and by the end of that you're done, and you'd probably want to apply to move forward with your masters and hopefully get in. But the registered counselor degree, which is the Bpsych equivalent, this is 18 months. So you do your 18 months worth. So the degree itself is 18 months, and it takes 18 months to complete. And within this 18 months, you need to complete an additional 720 hours of practical work. And whether this is done through volunteering or you go to an institution that allows you to do this, that is up to you. So where can I do a Bpsych equivalent in South Africa? There are 3 institutions that offer it. There is SACAP, there is Cornerstone. Both of these are private, and for the public institution, there is unfortunately only one institution that offers this, and this is UKZN. So this is the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa that offers this. And yes, that's basically what it means to do the Bpsych equivalent and to become a registered counselor. So why is this possibly a bit more advantageous as compared to doing a normal honors degree. So number one is the practical element that comes with it. As I mentioned before, from at the most of undergrad, there is no practical experience in terms of counseling people and doing actual psychology work besides theory and maybe your research task that you're supposed to be doing. But besides that, in terms of sitting one-on-one with somebody and counseling them, there is not much of that. So now when you do a Bpsych equivalent, that's where you get the practical and actual experience in terms of doing that. So you've done practical work, and when you attain your degree at the end of the day, it's not just based on theory, you're able to practice practically. And the other thing is that because the Bpsych equivalent is a professional degree and you're able to find employment and work, and you get a license number to practice, open your own private practice, even as a registered counselor. That is beneficial in that if you do not get into masters, as there are between 4 to 12 places available at each university depending on the stream that you want to do, if you don't get into masters immediately, you are able to find work and employment as a registered counselor. You are also able to become self-employed as a registered counselor, because there's a board that's keeping you accountable. You're not acting and working on your own accord, but also you're able to receive your own private clients and to generate an income. Obviously don't be doing it for money, but the bills aren't going to pay themselves, unfortunately. So I think that's why it would be more beneficial to become a registered counselor. However, I have heard somebody bring this to my attention to say, when you go for masters and you are a registered counselor, you must have a solid reason as to why you want to move from being a registered counselor to being a psychologist. So that is definitely something that I would say, please do think about if this is the route that you consider going. But also, as I've always said before, I'm just sharing the information that I have because it's information that I personally did not know at some point in my life, but it is for you to scrutinize and decide based on what you've heard and what you do more research about, what is best for you. I am not taking any responsibility for choices made, unfortunately, but I'm just sharing the information that I have so that you can do the rest and make an informed decision. So that's what I have to say on that. Then there's also something that is called the Bpsych equivalent in psychometry. Now here it is important for you to know the difference, because you still need to do your normal honors degree in psychology. So this is your postgraduate degree in 1 year. You need to do that and complete that. Then after, you can do the Bpsych equivalent that is in psychometry. And now this one is offered at the following institutions: UJ, Stellenbosch, and NMU, that's Nelson Mandela University in Gqeberha. I hope I said that correctly. But yeah, so this one is a 6 months degree. So remember, we went from 18 months to 6 months, but remember, this one requires the normal honors degree. So if you do your honors degree and then you want to become a psychometrist afterwards, then you do an additional 6 months. So here you receive training in that 6 months so that you're able to become a psychometrist. Now, what is a psychometrist? So a psychometrist is a profession within psychology that deals with psychometric tests, psychological tests. So these are tests that mental health tests, different and various tests within the psychology field that are used to make decisions or find guidance in terms of someone's mental well-being. And so, for example, neuropsychologists perform a lot of tests to test the functioning of the brain before they make diagnosis, or for them to understand how diagnosis impacts certain parts of a person's brain and function better. So that's just a simple and a basic example. There are tests such as career tests that people do to find out which career would best suit them, and these can be performed by either a counseling psychologist or a clinical psychologist. But now, as a psychometrist, you are able to then do these tests often working with, you know, other psychologists. You do these tests for them, they take your results and work from those results instead of doing the work from scratch. So if that is something that you're interested in, definitely go for it. It is also a way in which you can gain experience in the psychology field, and I know a lot of people who have gone this route while they wait to get into masters, because at the end of it, it is at the end of your bpsych equivalent in psychometry, you are able to be registered as a psychometrist, perform various tests, make and generate an income while you wait to get into masters. Once again, I heard this from my psychometry lecturer himself, to say he was asked, okay, you've done psychometry, you are working within the field of psychology, why is it that you want to move from being a psychometrist now to being a psychologist? And you should have an answer for that. So those are just some of the things that you should consider. But if you are, you know, wanting to be working with people, working with their mental health, understanding the brain more, understanding the mind more, understanding, you know, just general behavior, psychometry is definitely something that you can do. And it's got more of like I don't want to say a mathematical element to it, but you work a lot with stats and numbers, and yeah, I don't want to refer to it as like robotic, but it's more strategic in what it is. So if that is something that interests you, that is definitely an option for you. And as I mentioned, you can study it at either UJ, that's the University of Johannesburg, Stellenbosch, that is in Cape Town, or you can do it at Nelson Mandela University. Those are the three that do it. So the intake for the next 6 months, I think, will be opening in around March, so please do check that out. And if it's something that interests you, then you can go in for the July intake. And as I mentioned, 6 months you gain practical experience, and some institutions even place you you know, in where you can practice as a psychometrist. So I really hope that this video was helpful to you. I wish this was information that I had known from the get-go, but I guess God makes everything work together for good. And yeah, I'm doing enough with what I did know, or what I know now at the time. But I think I just have this thing in me that's saying, you know what, I don't want you guys to be like me and not have had this information. So at least once you have it, then you can make better decisions, I feel. So that is the bpsych equivalent in psychometry versus the bpsych equivalent in becoming a registered counselor. So the registered counselor one, as I mentioned, it's fairly new, and it is highly competitive now, to a point that even, you know, with the other ones in a private institution, if you meet the requirements, which is 65% from your undergrad to get into honors, they will gladly take you, especially if you show that you're able to pay. But now with becoming a registered counselor, because it is so in demand and there are so few institutions within South Africa that actually provide that program, there is an interview intake. You know, your marks need to be really, really good as well. So make sure that if this is something that interests you, that you put in the work. Unfortunately, mediocrity is not going to cut it, and just the bare minimum, or the bare minimum requirements that they need, is not going to cut it. So you definitely need to make sure that your marks are exceptionally good, but also that it's something that you thoroughly interested in, and that you are willing to stick out, because working with people in the psychological field, it is not an easy thing. But if it's for you, you will definitely stick it out. And yeah, if you have any more questions, do not hesitate to leave them in the question box, in the comment section down below. And also, if you have questions that you want to ask me personally, go ahead and ask me in the DMs, and I'll do my best to answer them to the best of my ability. And if I don't know, trust me, ask quite a few people, I will say that I do not know. But if there are any questions that you have about psychology, and you're looking for a platform that might answer them even better than I am doing, please do not forget to check out the Cognition & Co website and Instagram pages, as they have so much information that is pertaining to the psychology degree and field and journey and everything else that you might want to know about. I really hope that this video was helpful to you. Do not forget to share it with somebody in your world, because trust me, I know somebody does need this. Have yourself a fantastic whatever day of the week it is. Bye.